let's start with the UK first of all. 670 arrivals yesterday and today, and 670 departures. They're not happening. The planes that were going to approach Heathrow have been turned back. They've been diverted. They've gone somewhere else. Now, what happens, of course, this has a knock-on effect. So what will happen is that this will go on for the next week because you've got connections, you've got planes meeting planes, and now you have at least 670 aircraft in the wrong position. So they've also got to catch up as well. And you've got the incoming, the new set of flights coming and more passengers arriving at the airport waiting for their flights. So what will happen is that, first of all, those flights are all cancelled or some of them being diverted. So people then have to make their way from a foreign airport to their intended destination, or the airline has to try and find some planes somewhere. And what happens in future, of course, is that the planes are out of position and the crews, more importantly, are out of hours. So they can't use those crews. They'd already been rostered to do this, that, and the other, but they're allowed so many hours flying and so many hours relaxation. So that has all gone out the window. That's a total mess. So if you're traveling in the next week, possibly week and a half, you must contact your airline first and your travel agent and make sure that your plane is actually flying. And if it is flying, it's flying from the airport you think it's flying from, because it might have been combined with a combined into another flight pattern. The airlines will try and get you there, but it'll be eventually not when you think you should be there. So that's what's happening. So why did it happen? Everybody says, well, believe it or not, the entire Heathrow estate and that part of London is all controlled by one electricity substation. This is where all the wires from the national grid come in, and then it goes through a series of capacitors and bits of electronics, and then it's distributed locally. Now, what's happened, of course, Heathrow at one time was a very small airport. So they had a substation nearby, so they patched into that. And what's happened, Heathrow has grown, and it's grown, and it's grown, and they've added facilities to it. They've just kept patching into this one substation instead of dividing it up into sections. So if one substation goes, then you quickly switch it to another. And for some reason, this hasn't been done. This is a major failing. From the security point of view, you have to think, well, okay, we don't bomb airports anymore. We just take out the electricity substations because that does far more damage. And we are at a high security level. So you think that these substations, one, would be well protected. They're not. They just have normal fencing arrangements and a night watchman going around. That's probably oversimplifying it, but there isn't a military presence there. So anybody who's so minded could cause problems, shall we say. So that has to be addressed. And Heathrow is the operating company is very rich. They have a huge war chest that they've acquired for this third runway that they're going to build sometime. But I would suggest what they first of all do is rethink the whole power supply issue and divide the estate up into zones. So all the essential services are served by 2 or 3 substations, or there's a switching process. You would think that would happen, but clearly it hasn't. Just bits have been added to the existing circuits. And so now we're facing this particular situation. Now, to be fair, you don't expect substations to blow up, but over time these things do. And if they're not properly maintained or a particular component fails, then it happens. It's like overloading your plugs at home, which you shouldn't do. You should always unplug them at night, but nobody does. So this is the situation you're facing. Really, they had to rethink that. And on a wider sort of basis, if you look at all the flights that were coming into Heathrow, they've got the problems at their airports now because they've got flights backing up, they've got passengers coming in. Not all passengers will have heard the news that Heathrow is closed, and so the tour buses will be coming in, the businessmen will be coming in, the planes will be waiting on the stands, but nowhere to go. They'll have to go somewhere else, but everybody else wants to go somewhere else. So you have that problem, the air traffic control problem. Some countries it's all right. Other countries, well, France in particular, they're pretty tight. They're not easy to please, and so they will just cancel flights and say no, it's not our problem, it's Heathrow's problem. Take your problem elsewhere. We won't assist you. So that happens. So you'll find that all the airlines are getting together now. They are having extensive talks. The pilots are having extensive talks, and there'll be a lot of looking around as aircraft go up into the sky, because quite frankly, the whole pattern of things has been shaken up. And so you find that this is where pilot intelligence takes over, and they will literally be talking to each other and looking out for everybody to see if they can assist them in any way. So it's a monumental cock-up. There's no other word for it. And it's something that shouldn't have happened. The level of financial chaos is quite unbelievable. A lot of it may be covered by insurance. So there'll be a lot of that. So people will be relying on their travel insurance, and from a personal point of view, they need to see whether they are covered. But generally, it costs the business a huge amount of money, because there's all what we call the dead legs when they try and reposition all the aircraft. And they're not carrying passengers, there's no revenue, the luggage is in the wrong place. That's all got to be recovered as well and put back onto the right flights. And you know how it works. If the passenger's on the plane, the luggage goes with them. They tend not to put luggage on separate planes. They want people and luggage to fly together for safety reasons. So that is all going on as well. There are protocols for this, and so the major incident plan will go in and they will try and sort it out. But the point is, it is a mess, and it's going to carry on for at least a week. They're trying to downplay it, say, well, they're closed today, they're going to reopen tomorrow. But frankly, if you haven't got the aircraft, you haven't got the crews, you haven't got your luggage, and you've got more passengers arriving at the airport, then you do have a continuing problem. So you can expect a lot of cancellations, a lot of rerouting, and a lot of very confused people landing at airports they've never heard of before. That is the prime thing that you have to do to get the substation back up and working. But I'd also suggest that they very seriously sort out an alternative route. So it's called redundancy, backup redundancy. Computer firms do it. They have backup redundancy. If one system goes down, another system comes up. Now, this should be automatic. You had this with air traffic control. Their computers went down, and eventually they managed to get the system back up and running. It was a different system that took over, and a temporary system took over in the interim period. So why on earth this is not happening at Heathrow? This is a big question for the operating company, because the point is that when you have marketeers running organizations rather than engineers, they take a different view on matters. And perhaps it's time for the engineers to come back in and actually say, look, this is how you run an airport. Let's leave the marketing flim-flam to one side and make sure that the basic systems work for the passengers, for the airlines, for everybody.